Hey everyone, my name is Corv and welcome back to my channel. So previously, my last video, I talked about the 5 reasons for why I love Lost Ark. Now, I still love Lost Ark, but there are things that could be better, and some of those things could be fixed pretty easily. Other things probably can't be fixed very easily. And some things are going to be fixed in future patches because they're fixed in Korea. But right now, in the Western launch, they are not fixed. So, this video is going to focus on how the Western release of Lost Ark can improve. So, with that being said, the first and probably biggest thing that I think that Lost Ark needs to improve on is PvP. So, I'm not much of a PvPer myself, and I stay away from it mostly. I do my weekly PvP quest on most of my alt characters, but other than that, I don't really do it because I think that there's a lot of problems with PvP. So, for one, the matchmaking is sometimes really bad, where you can get really unskilled players on your team and have a really skilled player on the enemy team, and it becomes a complete mess of a match, and one team just gets completely stomped, and that's not fun. The other aspect about that is there's no, to my knowledge anyway, system determining what classes are on each team. So sometimes you will just get so unlucky with your class composition or your team composition, and it just makes the whole match not really enjoyable. Now, there are some great things about PvP, and it kind of ties into the combat, which I talked about in my previous video. And I think there is so much room for improvement and Smilegate can actually make PvP like this really fun thing. It just needs to be balanced way better, and that'll bring me into my next thing about PvP, which is the ranked or competitive aspect of it. So I'm a very competitive person. I played League of Legends for 8 years, peaked out at Diamond. Don't really play much anymore because of Lost Ark, but I feel very similar vibes from Lost Ark PvP and League of Legends in the solo queue sense, where if you're playing solo queue and you go into a game and you're trying really hard and you're playing really well, if you have one player that is not performing, you just lose. And that sucks and doesn't feel good because it's really hard to carry in Lost Ark by yourself, just like it's really hard to carry in League of Legends. Which begs the question, why can't we do team 3v3 ranked that are pre-made? So pre-made teams going into 3v3 is just like the PvP tournament going on right now, actually. If I were able to do ranked with my friends and communicate and talk about when to go in and when to back out and when to use cooldowns and stuff like that, that would make the game really interesting. And it would make it a lot more enjoyable than having random people that you don't know, that you won't communicate with you, kind of ruin your experience. So I think one solution to the PvP issue right now would be offer like a separate bracket and a separate rating for pre-made 3v3 teams. I think that would be like a really great way for players to have a better experience, and also to class lock, as in you can't stack classes in that pre-made PvP mode. So, you can't do 3 artillerists, you can't do 3 paladins, etc. I think that's just like one example of how PvP can be improved. So now I want to talk about the next thing that Lost Ark needs to improve on, and that's going to be Tier 1 and Tier 2 Guardian matchmaking. So I don't know anyone watching has Tier 2 alts, but all of my alts are in Tier 2 right now, and the matchmaking is such a wild experience because I'll matchmake on one character, and there's a random person with 1385 item level who is doing it for who knows why, and it takes 3 minutes to kill the boss, and then the boss is dead, and I don't even have to do anything, and I could just sit there and do nothing, and that's great. But then I can matchmake again, and all of a sudden there's another person who's 1385, and I get carried again randomly, and I'm like, oh wow, this is great, this is really nice. It's making my daily task list faster, and the only downside is I don't really get to experience playing my class because I'm getting carried, but I'm like, you know what, I can always do that later. So then I switch characters and matchmake again into the same boss, and I check the gear of everybody. Engravings are wrong, stats are wrong, no one knows the mechanics, no one wants to give up, and I end up wasting 5 potions and 15 minutes of my life until finally the last person dies, and I don't get anything out of it. And I don't have a solution to this problem. It's just really bad to be an experienced player, and even if you're playing an alt that doesn't have the right engravings or doesn't have the right stats just because they're an alt, you know how to play the game and you know how the boss mechanics work. And then you have these other players who don't know how they work, they don't care to know, and it completely ruins the experience of players like me, because then my time just gets wasted. And I mean, their time gets wasted too because the boss doesn't die. So that kind of brings me into my third thing, that probably the most important thing that Lost Ark can improve on in the West is teaching game systems to players. Now, one of the best things about MMOs is that they have an incredible amount of systems in them, and the Lost Ark is no exception to that. Now, the thing with Lost Ark is that its systems will greatly impact your damage and your supporting and your overall effectiveness as a player in a group setting. Whether it's engravings, stats, gems, cards, etc., or even just your build and your tripods and what abilities you're using, and all of those things go into what makes a character more effective. And I have seen so many times in all levels of content people with the wrong engravings, the wrong stats, the wrong cards, the wrong gems, etc. And it's infuriating to say the least, because for one, they're playing suboptimally when they could be playing more optimally, and that's already frustrating to begin with. But there's a diversion at this point where there's two groups of players. There's one group of players, player A, or group A, which I really love. This group, you tell them, hey, like, you're not even wearing engravings on your character. Like, they don't even have them equipped, which is, I've seen that multiple times in tier 1 and tier 2. And I'll let them know, and they'll say something along the lines of, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I'm new to the game, still learning. Thanks for the advice. Okay, great. Whatever. It's impeding my group content, but they're new. They're learning the game. I'm not going to chastise them for it. But group B, which are the groups of players that I despise, they'll, in the same situation, respond with, F you, I don't give a shit, I'm not wearing engravings, you can't tell me how to play, etc. And that group, for one, is just, I would be embarrassed to be like that because they're just awful players. They're always the worst players, by the way. And they don't care about making their character optimal. And I understand if you want to run around and collect Makoko seeds and do nothing else and have no engravings and do life scaling, fine, whatever. It's an MMO. Like, just be happy. Do whatever makes you happy. But when you are then going into group content, you need to have this certain amount of respect for the time of other people that should motivate you to try and play at your best. Because when you aren't doing that, you're wasting your time and you're wasting other people's time. So that's my biggest gripe right now. I feel like the systems are very overwhelming for a lot of players. So instead of having to take the time to learn them because they aren't really that intuitive through the instruction of the game, people just get defensive and say, stop talking to me, stop telling me how to play the game, I don't care. So if Smilegate somehow was able to force players to learn different things, I think that would be great. So I know the training room kind of has like lessons and can tell you about different things. I really feel like if you want to start doing group content, there should be some sort of threshold. I don't know if it's a knowledge threshold or a engraving threshold or a stat threshold or something, to make sure that these people who are basically trolling by making it extremely difficult for a group to clear content aren't, ruining everybody's experience. But I don't really know the best way that Lost Ark would be able to implement new teaching. It took me a long time to understand many of the systems, and I still have a lot more to learn. So I understand how it could be really overwhelming. It's just unfortunate that Group B, there are so many players who think they know what they're talking about, and they don't know what they're talking about, and refuse to listen, refuse to learn. And I don't think there's anything Lost Ark can do about that. So it might just be an unfortunate reality. But once you get to tier 3, like where I am, and at 1400, where my bard is, basically all the people who I've done content with know everything. So at least it's not affecting me that much on a daily basis, but it's definitely affecting a lot of other people. So the last two things that I want to talk about relating to how Lost Ark can improve in the West, they're both small things, but it's going to be armor clipping and skins. Now, basically every MMO has armor clipping, and I know it's not like a reasonable fix that Lost Ark can make it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I hate like having armor on and having a really cool weapon and just having that weapon go through the armor or costume. It just sucks because it kind of takes away the quote unquote immersion. Or like when you have a cloak and you're running and your cloak is flowing through your weapon on your back and you're just like, it's just a personal pet peeve, I guess. I hate to see it. The good news is that Lost Ark's content, like end game PVE content, is so hectic and intense, so you don't really have time to notice it. It's only really when you're like standing still. But that's something they could do. And the last thing regarding skins, it's just obvious that there are not enough skins in the game. And there's been a lot of drama about why don't they release all the skins, etc., etc. I am not, a game developer and I'm not a game publisher, so I don't know the ins and outs and pros and cons of releasing skins versus not releasing skins. But at the end of the day, there just aren't enough skins in the game. And even with the additional skins recently and the costumes, it still feels like there's not enough. And basically every single person I've spoken to in this game is like, please, we want to give you our money, Amazon. We want to spend money on skins, and we have no skins to spend it on. Or no skins to buy. It just doesn't make any sense. Release more skins. Just give players things to buy. They want to buy things in your game, and they don't exist. It's such a tease because they can look at Korea and Russia and see what skins they have, and they're like, well, we want these too, and they don't have it. So overall, skins definitely need to be added into the game. But yeah, that's just 5 things that I think Lost Ark can improve on the Western release. And overall, besides these 5 things, and I'm sure there's many other things from bots and stuff like that that can be improved, the game is fantastic and it will definitely not stop me from playing it. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my video, and I will see you guys in the next one.